All right, so I want to just say welcome, and Uhuru. Uhuru is an African word that means freedom in Swahili, so I want to say Uhuru to everybody. Uhuru. And, thank you so much to the San Jose Peace and Justice Center for hosting this event to drop the charges against the Uhuru 3. And my name is Wendy. I am a proud member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which you can join as well. We are an organization that was formed by the African People's Socialist Party, designed to go into the white community and raise reparations to African people. And we are building a branch of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement in the Bay Area. So that's really exciting. This is the South Bay, so I'm looking at some of you, maybe you will be future members of Uhuru Solidarity Movement, future meaning later tonight. So first I want to salute just the leadership of the Uhuru Movement, the African People's Socialist Party Chair, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who some of you may already know, who is one of the Uhuru 3, who has built this organization, who came out of the Black Power movement of the 60s and built a worldwide organization uniting African people, building an economy that's contending with the colonial economy and the colonial mode of production. So I also want to salute Deputy Chair Onazane Yeshitela, who is a member of the African People's Socialist Party, who's built something called the Black Power Blueprint, which is reversing gentrification, which is putting power in the hands of the Black community, the African community, and we salute her. I want to salute the leaders who are here from the Uhuru Movement. First, the representative of the West Coast region, Bakri Olatunji, is the rep for the African People's Socialist Party in this Western region, and you'll be hearing from him. And also chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Penny Hess, and she will be speaking tonight. She is someone who's been a longtime member of the Solidarity Committee when it was first formed back in the 70s to really put an organization accountable to the Black Power movement of white people who, we go out and raise reparations, and we really we unite with ending our isolation from the rest of humanity that really has been a consequence of what it means to be white in this society, is that you are putting yourself at odds with everyone else on the planet. And anyways, we'll talk more about that. But we're excited to be here. We're going to watch a brief video in a minute about the FBI attack. So, hands off Uhuru. I want to start, just kind of get some energy in the room. When I say hands off Uhuru, you say hands off Africa. Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Africa.
Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Africa.
Awesome. Woo! Thank you very much. So, the Uhuru movement has been struggling for the liberation of African people since 1972, and about a year and a half ago, the FBI raided 7 offices and homes of the organization, causing major physical damage, but more importantly, it was a pre-dawn raid that put the livelihood of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Onazane Yeshitela, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and Chair Jesse Nevel of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, put them in harm's way, and they did thousands of dollars of physical damage, stole decades of archival footage and material, and are in the hopes of building a criminal case against the now Uhuru 3 is what we call Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and Chair Jesse Nevel. So 9 months later, the U.S. government indicted the Uhuru 3, and they intend to put these 3 leaders in prison for up to 15 years. And we'll hear more about the bogus charges that don't hold water. You know, they are ridiculous charges. They would be laughable if they weren't serious, and if the U.S. government didn't have the power to put people in prison, right? And of course, this is in the context of, you know, someone like Nancy Pelosi of the Democratic Party saying that anyone who's pro-Palestinian might have ties to Russia. You know, in the same way they're saying the Uhuru Movement is acting on behalf of the Russian government. So these are ridiculous charges. This is all in the overall context of this escalated assault on the people of Palestine. So when we understand, you know, stopping and overturning settler colonialism and white settler colonialism, you know, which I think is something that people are becoming more and more familiar with, we have to understand that what is happening in occupied Palestine, you know, really has its roots here, because we are here on stolen indigenous land. And those of us who, you know, our families came from Europe, you know, seeking a better way of life because of what was happening in Europe, we took the better way of life that indigenous people had right here. And we also exist on a pedestal of stolen land as well as the stolen labor of African people. So anyways, so this is really important just to have this event and to have more events like this. So, you know, as this case will likely go to trial, we want everyone to know about it. We want to break the silence, because there's just silence around this case, except, you know, here and there, the word is getting out. So this case is widely seen as the most important battle for free speech. And in fact, if the U.S. government wins, that's going to set a precedent to where, you know, you'll be hearing this again. You know, free speech as we know it will not exist. So, since the FBI attacks on July 29th, 2022, the Uhuru Movement has waged a brilliant counteroffensive and has built what is now called the Anti-Colonial Fightback Coalition, which has many organizations involved, including the ad hoc Free Leonard Peltier Committee. And I mention that because we are hosting an event up in Oakland on Saturday that will feature a presentation by a member of that committee. So I want to invite you, ahead of time to that. And the case of Leonard Peltier, I think, is most of you here likely know about. And this is a courageous indigenous leader who is a member of the American Indian Movement, who was framed by the FBI and put in prison for 2 life sentences in an attempt to shut down his ability to struggle for indigenous freedom. So, in a similar way, this is very much, the U.S. government's attack on the anti-colonial struggle. So our goal tonight is to win you to join the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, to get involved, to build more events, to come to the webinars. There's constant events happening online as well as in person. And if you are a white person, we would love it for you to join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We have a goal to win 1,000 members this year. Is just the tip of the iceberg. And also I invite you to come to St. Louis for our national convention. That is where the headquarters of the Uhuru Movement is located, and also it is where the Black Power Blueprint is growing and building. And the theme this year is No More Genocide in Our Name. And so, I welcome you to that. And so before we get started with our speakers, we just want to go through, I think it's 3 minutes or so, video, just detailing what happened on July 29th, 2022 with the FBI attacks. Do I need to press play? Okay, sorry. No.
This is the FBI. You have a federal warrant for this address. Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out. something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, a community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You preach what do you eat? You want? Don't know. Go hold that the money. Hold on.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru Movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we have the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Africa.
Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Africa.
Teacher, one more. So we say unity through, and you say reparations. Unity through.
Reparations.
Unity through.
Reparations.
Thank you so much. All right, so it's my honor to bring up the West Coast representative of the African People's Socialist Party, Bakari Olatunji, who has been a member of the party for many decades and also has been involved in many campaigns of the Uhuru Movement, including the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. Also was the leader of the Little Bobby Hutton Free Clinic. Is that the correct name? Yes. Where he served as a nurse and for a community health clinic. There's too many campaigns to name, but he also serves as a leader in Uhuru Foods and Pies, which is expanding into St. Louis. So I just want to give a warm welcome to Bakari Olatunji.
I want to thank Wendy for that introduction, and also thank the Peace Center here in San Jose for hosting this event. I think it's a very important event, and it's always very important discussion that we should always engage in. So I just want to really appreciate everyone here for being here on tonight. And I think
just a second, for the filming, do you need him to speak into the microphone?
It might help. Just make it a little bit louder. Just
so there's good sound quality.
Can you hear me?
yeah, press the button on the mic up.
I think it's at the top.
I'll see. Okay, is that better?
Much.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyway, again, thank you for being here. And I think when I think about the name of this center, Peace and Justice Center, there is no peace for the indigenous people of this land, whose land was stolen at gunpoint, this land in which we have this meeting on right now. And when you think about, there is no justice for African people who were stolen from Africa at gunpoint. So when we talk about peace and justice, there will be none for colonized peoples of the world until we're free, until we have self-determination. That's what we had as a people before a foreign and alien power came and stole our land, stole our labor, and built itself up. And that is the location that we want to get to. So I just really want to appreciate being here in San Jose tonight. And I forgot that I had been to this center a couple of times before. It's been a while, but I feel very welcome here. Thank you guys for having us. And you know, the reality is African people and indigenous people, we have to struggle for self-determination. That's the place that we want to get back to, and I think it's really important to say that. The center of the discussion when we look at the raids that happened here, and the center of things that we're talking about, is the question of free speech. Something that the United States government itself was founded on. When they talk about free speech, it didn't include Africans, it didn't include indigenous people. But here you find right now today in 2024, it is the African People's Socialist Party that is defending free speech in the United States government. And it is the United States government that is attacking the free speech that it is constitutionally supposed to uphold. So the people who we are trying to win to be a part of this, which is everyone in this room, should be a part of this hands-off Uhuru, hands-off Africa campaign. It is the correct place to be, it is the right place to be, and it is for this reason that we are under attack as the African People's Socialist Party. And the thing is, the attacks on the party are nothing new. These attacks have been going on for a long time. In 1966, Chairman Omali Yeshitela was given 5 years in prison for tearing a racist mural off the wall in St. Petersburg, Florida. You know, and that's real. In 1968, he was in prison again for inciting a riot for a riot that never did happen in Florida. You know, and these are the types of attacks that happen all the time. In St. Petersburg, Florida in 1986, was it, I think? Somewhere in 1996, there was 300 police, 300 armed thugs attacked African community meeting. And they spent all of the tear gas in the city of Florida in that building. There were men, women, children in that building having a supposedly open community meeting. They said it was unlawful for us to meet. So when we talk about these attacks, these were times when the United States government was beginning weaker and weaker and weaker because of the struggles of colonized peoples around the world. And the African People's Socialist Party has been a part of that struggle for the 50-year history that we've had, relentless struggle, campaign after campaign, building economic institutions here in Oakland. As Wendy said, I was a member of the Bobby Hutton African People's Freedom Clinic. It was a clinic that we put around in the African community on the ground in Oakland, California, that went to the impoverished communities in Oakland, giving free blood pressure screening, bringing services to the African community that they didn't have access to, you know. And the reality is, as a colonized people, we catch hell on a daily basis. And everybody knows about the police shootings that occurred in this city, in Oakland and throughout the country. We know about Mike Brown in San Jose. There's in a city that you can't name that Africans have been murdered here. And the thing is, as quiet as it's kept, you're murdered in the hospital beds while you are there to get care. You're murdered in the housing where your children are infested by roach droppings where they get asthma and die. The reality is, living as a colonized existence for African people is something that's inhumane. And the reason why we were attacked is because we don't deal with that whole slave mentality, a welfare mentality state, that African people live off the welfare of white people. It is white people who have lived off the welfare of African people for the last 600 years. And that's something that the African People's Socialist Party has been saying for decades. And the reality is we have to begin to move in a direction to bring people into political life to say this is what it is. These are the colonizers. These are the people who have stolen land, who have stolen lives, and who benefit from that. And we have to draw down the gauntlet to say either you're going to be on the side of the colonized people and, as Wendy said earlier, join the right side of humanity, or you're not. And the reality is that decision is for people to make on their own. But the reality is we have to bring people into political life. We have to do more of these types of events, get more things out. And I hope that people will come up to Oakland on this coming Saturday. I think it's really important to do that. And the reason also that we're targeted is the fact that we are building. We are winning. Right now, as Wendy said, in St. Louis, Missouri, the African People's Socialist Party has a Black Power Blueprint project on the ground. We first went into St. Louis after Mike Brown was murdered and the uprising of the courageous African youth there in Ferguson, which is right there in St. Louis City, St. Louis County. And you saw Africans in the streets with tanks fighting. The United States government had tanks in the streets. And when we saw this, we said we have to be there. And after the dust is cleared, all the organizations that were there on the ground in 2014, the African People's Socialist Party, you saw that red, black, and green flag raised high up in St. Louis, Missouri right now, right next to the Uhuru House, where we have a community center. We have an event center. We have an African Independence Workforce Program where brothers and sisters coming out of prisons right now have a place where they can live and train and get coming back into society and fight as they should for self-determination. We have a doula, a women's health center that is being built. We have, as someone said, Uhuru Foods and Pies will be expanding in St. Louis. The same Uhuru Foods and Pies that people have had access to here in the Bay Area since 1981 will now have benefit of that in St. Louis. This is the reason why they're attacking us, because we are on the ascendancy. And it is the failure of the United States government to gather more resources from around the world. They are fighting for their lives. They are fighting to protect their stolen loot. And it is incumbent upon the African working class and our allies to build and to really end this foul, vicious, blood-sucking social system forever and wipe it off the planet. And the only way it's going to be done is when people take action. People join organization, and not just any organization. You're going to join an organization that is doing something on the ground, organizing people. I mean, most people in this room are organizers. You know, you get your leaflets, you get your tables, you get your donation cans, and you go out there and you win people. And you talk to people about the ideas, and you win them to the truth. Because the reality is, the truth is what's going to set you free. And the truth is, African and other colonized peoples around the world, again, will know no peace and no freedom until we have self-determination, until we have control of our resources, control of our land. And that is what the African People's Socialist Party has been doing for 50 years, and that is why it is under attack right now, today. And the chairman is 82 years old, and a 15-year sentence is a death sentence.
That's right.
And that's something that is not going to happen. Just as Leonard Peltier right now is going blind in prison today. He's been in prison since what, 1976?
Yeah.
You know, and the reality is that is 30-something years too long.
48.
38, thank
48.
you. 48. Yeah, that's almost old as I am.
That's right.
The reality is, you know, it's going to take the power of the people. I think I spoke last week, and we talk about Huey Newton. Huey Newton was freed from prison after being accused of murdering an Oakland policeman. And it was the power of the people that got Huey up out of that prison.
That's right.
And that is what it's going to take now. It's going to take the power of the people. So when we talk about hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, that is the power of the people. And the people unite with that. Because the reality is this government is weak, and it's from a place of weakness that it attacked the Uhuru Movement. because the Uhuru Movement has been exposing it for 50 years, calling it for what it is. And the thing is, they can't stand that. So I don't want to stand up here and rabble, because I know we got a lot to talk about, and we want to engage everybody in discussion. So I just really, again, want to appreciate people for allowing me to come here and say a few things, and to build hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. And as Wendy said, hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Africa.
Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Africa.
Uhuru.
Thank you so much, Comrade Rep Bakri. And I just want to acknowledge the presence of Sidla Amina. It's great to see you.
It's okay?
Wow.
Okay.
All right. So I want to say another chant. All right. Tierra Libertad. How are you? I want to say not one more year, and then you say free Leonard Peltier. Not one more year.
Free Leonard Peltier.
Not one more year.
Free Leonard Peltier.
All right. Thank you, Uhuru. All right. Thank you, Comrade Rep Bakri, for that presentation. And next, I want to bring up another great comrade and leader, the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, who had heeded the call back in 1976 when the African People's Socialist Party formed the African People's Solidarity Committee to go back into the white community in the belly of the beast and rip, you know, those white people, us white people, away from allegiance to this system. And she's also written a book that everybody should read called Overturning the Culture of Violence. And she's also a proud Uhuru 3 member. And let's say one more time, hands off the Uhuru 3. Hands off Africa. Right, bring Kenny up.
Thank you, Uhuru. Thank you, Wendy. I just want to salute Representative of the African People's Socialist Party, Bakri. I want to salute Sidla Amina, Hess, really representing the Mexican Liberation Movement. Here, I want to thank Joan and the San Jose Peace and Justice Center. Also salute Comrade Donna, fighting for the freedom of Leonard Peltier, not Lord Peltier. My name is Penny Hess, and I am the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee. That is the organization of white people that is under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party have fought for over 50 years for African people, black people, wherever they have been dispersed around the world, to have their freedom, to have their liberation, to have their resources, to have their land of Africa. And he is determined to see the independence of African people in his lifetime. I support that. And you know, I salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela because it is from him that I learned how the world got to be the way it is right now, why it is in such a mess, but what is the future. And I also learned from him the incredible humanity of African people and oppressed and colonized peoples around the world. And that is a great honor to, you know, to be able to recognize what this filthy system is that we live in and what it is that the world can be and must be, even to save this planet itself. So I salute the chairman. I have to, Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela, another incredibly brilliant, powerful leader of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Movement, who is responsible for so many things, including the economic front of the party, which is building dual and contending power in the hands of the African working class, which is a very powerful and beautiful thing. I want to thank Joan also And thank you very much for the San Jose Peace and Justice, as I said, and Comrade Donna for, and we must free Leonard Peltier this year.
Yes.
Not one more year. He must come out. He must come out because Leonard Peltier is in prison to remind us that this land is stolen land of the indigenous people.
Yes.
And when indigenous people have control of their land back, Leonard Peltier will be recognized as the freedom fighter that he is, and the true criminals are going to go to prison. I am, as has been said, one of the Uhuru Three. We are facing 15 years in prison. This has not anything to do with violence, with murder, with drugs. This has to do with our words, with our speech, with the ability to express freedom of speech. And there is nothing that Chairman Omali Yeshitela or I or Comrade Jesse Nevel, who is also under indictment as the leader of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, have ever said or done that is not covered by the First Amendment of this Constitution that is built on the genocide of indigenous people and the enslavement of African people. There is nothing that we have ever said or done. The chairman has led the charge and kept alive the Black liberation of the movement of the 1960s, who has said that he wants to complete the African Revolution, that African people should be free. African people should have reparations for the billions of dollars that are owed to them that built the U.S. economy on the stolen land of the indigenous people. And Chairman Omali Yeshitela has always put himself on the line to fight for the liberation of indigenous people and oppressed and colonized peoples around the world as his own, as one struggle of the oppressed peoples of the world against this system built at their expense. And he organized the Solidarity Committee for the first time in history, putting white people, under the leadership of the African Revolution, which makes so much sense. Because otherwise, we're under the leadership of U.S. imperialism. We're under the leadership of colonialism. We're under the leadership of the Biden, the Trump, everything that this government stands for at the expense of everybody else in the world. And so the ability of, for the first time in history, the colonizers to be under the leadership of the colonized is our liberation. It truly is our liberation. This is how we, in a principled way, join the people on the planet Earth without being their overseers or their, just trying to direct it in a way that the colonized peoples always do. I want to tell you a little bit about the case that we are facing. That, again, as it has been said, we're facing 15 years in prison, and that we are indicted for our words. Again, no murder, no nothing. And as you saw on the video of July 2022, July 29th, 7 properties of the Uhuru Movement that were raided violently by the FBI, as you saw that, 5 a.m. in the morning. They came with assault rifles, guns, armored vehicles, which is a kind of tank. And you saw scores and scores, like an army, a literal army in each site. And that one particular one that you saw was the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida, which has been there since the early 90s and actually is the town where Chairman Omali Yeshitela was born. So it is a deep base of support and unity with the Uhuru Movement there. And they did this in order to try to destroy as they always do, the voice of the anti-colonial revolution of the world. And I'm here to say that from the white community, from the solidarity movement, they want to silence the voice of white people who stand in solidarity and call for reparations to African people, who unite with that and actually work to return stolen resources for the programs that they are building in St. Louis and in many other parts of the country and world and in Africa. And I want to say that I want you to join us in saying, God damn it, they are not going to silence our voice. That we will fight for reparations to African people. So obviously it is earned, it is owed, and that we will continue to fight for genuine solidarity with the right of African people to be free. So I appreciate that. So we were raided in July of the year 2022. So it's been almost 2 years now. We weren't indicted until about April, end of April of 2023. This was just hanging out there. We were unindicted co-conspirators. That's what they called us. We were unindicted co-conspirators. So we were finally indicted last April. It was actually, I think it was May when we actually went to court on that. Our lawyers, and we do have a really powerful legal team, just some great lawyers who work in unity with the political leadership that Chairman Omali Yeshitela gives them, and really appreciate their political, taking this on as a political case, which is really, really important to do. And one of the lawyers, Leonard Goodman, submitted or wrote and created a motion to dismiss that went before the judge. It was brilliant, but they rejected it. They rejected it just in the last month or so. So they have now given us a trial date of September 3rd of this year. And, it's still, it's just mind-boggling that this is going to go to trial. Because our lawyers are like, what could they even use, that we've ever said or done? And I don't know, but in any case, they're doing this because it is a continuation of the kind of political attack against the African liberation movement known as COINTELPRO in the 1960s. That was one front of it, that used CIA, DEA, just every kind of front to crush that movement, and as we know, assassinated the leaders. And this is a continuation of that. This is saying that African people can only have, can only exist in this country if they don't challenge the basis of this colonial system that we live in and that they live under. So we're going to trial on September 3rd. In the meantime, we can't travel without getting permission. In order to come here, I live in St. Louis. So every Wednesday, I have to call this guy. We all do. We have to call him. And we have to, and he can come to our house anytime, and he does, to search it or do whatever he wants. And in order to travel, like weeks ahead, I have to, we have to give them all of our plane tickets, just how we are traveling, where we are staying, and what is our itinerary for every day. For every day. I mean, it's really outrageous that that they're making us do that. So this is part of it. It's sort of like, the trial could be September 3rd, but we're really already on trial. I mean, it's already, this is already a verdict that they forced under. And, it's really outrageous. And I want all of you to be outraged, because they use the African liberation movement, as always, as a test case And if we are convicted, our lawyers have made it clear, there will not be free speech as we know it in this country.
Yeah.
And it is something that everyone has to take up and fight for the right of the anti-colonial free speech movement, that the right of colonized people to talk about and challenge it and fight against the colonial domination that they face. So I think that it is incredible. It is a very, very important test case, as we're saying, and we must defeat it. We must push it back. And I appreciate your support here today. Just to say a few things. We are innocent. We are completely innocent of everything they have said. These are bogus, fabricated, ridiculous charges. That, again, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution says that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's in their Constitution. And as Chairman Omali Yeshitela says, and I think Bakri mentioned it, that for the first time he's fighting for the U.S. government to carry out what it says it's doing with its Constitution. It's never been, he's always criticized what the U.S. does in the name of the law, but in this case, he's put in a position where he has to defend what they say is the basis for, for political rights in this country. And so that's really important. And what they're saying, and let me just say a couple things, because I have some notes here. Chairman Omali Yeshitela is 82 years old, as has been said. He has fought for justice, for political power, for African people since his 20s, since the 1960s. And as has been said, a conviction and sentence of 15 years would be a death sentence. That the U.S. government is charging that somehow, although the chairman started political life in around 1966 with an organization, he worked for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee then he worked for JOMO, the Junta of Militant Organizations, and then he formed the African People's Socialist Party in 1972. So the U.S. government says that somehow in 2014, when he would have been 70 years old, or 72, he became a Russian agent with the goal of, quote, sowing discord in the United States. Like, what? Just to think of how demeaning, how colonialist, how anti-African, how racist, how disgusting to say that an African person doesn't know would meet a Russian or any white person to tell them what the conditions are that they face every day.
Right.
I mean, that's, is totally absurd. And that suddenly, that the chairman would do this after, the majority of his life fighting for the liberation of African people, he would suddenly, it's not even, you can't even conceive of this. Of course that couldn't happen. It's so bogus. So I talked about the fact that in July 2022, 7 homes and offices of the Uhuru Movement in 2 cities, in St. Louis and St. Petersburg, were raided at 5 a.m. by the FBI, including Chairman Omali Yeshitela's home, the Uhuru House Organizing Center in St. Petersburg, Florida, the Uhuru Solidarity Center that I work out of in St. Louis, a beautiful building that actually is owned by the African People's Socialist Party. We raise resources there, and we're in the white community in the south side of St. Louis. And it has an amazing banner, you know, kind of at the title of the building that says Unity Through Reparations. And so many people in St. Louis, which is the town, the city where Mike Brown was killed in 2014 by the police. And there, I mean, there are just so many, many supportive people in that town who have just said, we appreciate that there's a building and a center calling for reparations to the African community there. And it has a tremendous amount of support. Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, there were scores of FBI agents in each location, armored vehicles, all that. They were throwing grenades through the windows, and they had drones. They had little flying drones that they flew particularly into the chairman's house, and his flat was upstairs. You know, it went up the stairs into their apartment. They broke windows. They broke. They broke every door in the Uhuru house in St. Petersburg, Florida. And there's a lot of doors in there. It's a very big building. They just a wave of destruction. They took our computers, our cell phones, files, you know, just all kinds of stuff. And they did at least, I know it was more than this, but at least like $20,000 in damage that had to be raised to, you know, which is part of what they want to do. I just want to also say that what we're charged with is violation of 18 U.S. Code Statute 951, which, according to our lawyers who've done the legal research on it, has hardly ever been even used. And it's never been used for speech. And it's saying, that statute says, whoever other than a diplomatic or consular officer or attaché acts in the United States as an agent of a foreign government without prior notification to the Attorney General, if required in subsection B, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for not more than 10 years or both. You know, to say that, you know, that, I mean, it's mind-boggling, again. To say that Chairman Omali Yeshitela is an agent of a foreign government is absolutely absurd. And then the second charge is 18 U.S. Code Statute 371, conspiracy to commit the offense or to defraud the United States if two or more persons conspire either to commit any offense against the United States or to defraud the United States or any agency thereof in any manner for any purpose, and one or more of such persons do any act to affect the object of the conspiracy, each shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for not more than 5 years or both. So, again, these statutes have never been used around the question of speech. And then I just want to list, because they have something in the indictment that they call overt acts, and that is those are your criminal acts. I had to look it up, but that's what that means. Those are your criminal acts. This is what they say our criminal acts are. So get ready. It's saying that in May, because there's about 10 things here. In May 2015, Chairman Omali Yeshitela visited Moscow. Okay, the chairman has also visited Ireland, Jamaica, all over Africa, Paris, France, Germany, England, and he's traveled the world speaking about the right of African people to be free and liberated, going to Moscow. And by the way, a lot of other people went to Moscow on that trip as well from other organizations, including white organizations. So that's number one. Number two, that in 2015, the Uhuru Movement created a UN petition, a petition to the United Nations called Africans Charged Genocide, which was up on change.org, which had, by the way, over 133,000 signatures from around the world, which they took down they took down, which there was a goal to take that to the United Nations. So that's another of our criminal acts, having a petition charging the United States with genocide of African people. Number 3, in September 2015, the chairman spoke at another conference in Moscow called the Dialogue of Nations, in which there were anti-war people there from around the world. There were representatives from Ireland, from many different places throughout the world there, and other African organizations. And it says in 2016 that one of the criminal act, the overt act, is that there was a reparations tour. A reparations tour, which, by the way, we have done reparations tours every year for about 35 or 40 years. But this particular one, I would just point out, because they don't say what it is, this was the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, which is a mass organization of the party of African people fighting for their democratic rights, followed a tour of Muriel Fanon, who is of the United Nations, and it was a United Nations tour in which they were doing hearings around the U.S. in many cities on whether they should adopt reparations, as a demand from the United Nations. And it was, I know it was in Chicago, New York, Jackson, Mississippi, San Francisco, many other places. And I had the honor to have been at one of the places. I think I was at the one in Chicago, in which the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement went to every one. They drove around with no resources, by the way. They stayed out in a tent in front of the place, and each place they went, they were in a van, and this is in the middle of winter, by the way. Everywhere they went, they did give a presentation calling for reparations to the African community. And in fact, the outcome of that tour that we're being charged with as a criminal act is that for the first time in history, the United Nations adopted the demand for reparations to African people. So, but for us to support it, was really wrong, according to them. Number 5 was that there was an article in the Burning Spear on Russian athletes in the Olympics. Number 6 is in 2017, the Uhuru Movement ran a candidate, Healy Amanini and Jesse Nevel too, in St. Petersburg, Florida for city council. And they're saying, actually, in some of the indictments, that this was a plot by Russia to take over the entire election system, from a city of 300,000 people of the United States. This is absurd. Number 7 is the 2018 International Committee for the Protection of Human Rights, which I believe was in Moscow, which people went from all over the world there. Number 8, 2019, another election in St. Petersburg, Florida. Criminal Act. 2020, the Dialogue of Nations Conference in, that was in Moscow, but because it was in the middle of COVID, it was on Zoom. So it was a Zoom conference. And number 10, that in February 2022, right before basically the US-backed forces of NATO invaded, Ukraine to attack Russia, that the African People's Socialist Party held a press conference charging, expressing support for Russia and denouncing the NATO actions to create this war. So those are our criminal acts. And it's, again, I think as has been said, that it almost makes you want to laugh, except that they're very serious about putting Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Jesse and myself in prison for 15 years. And if that happens, again, there will not be a First Amendment. There will not be a true freedom of speech in this country. And I just want to say a couple more things, and then I'll be finished, and we can open it up for discussion. But the thing that Chairman Omali Yeshitela fights for, that we have to understand, and what I do as the Speaker of the Solidarity Committee to other white people, is to show that what colonized people, including African people inside the U.S., are fighting is not racism. It is not the ideas in people's heads. It is colonialism. It is colonialism. It means that a whole people are oppressed and dominated by a foreign and alien state power and population for profit. Yes. And that is exactly what happens in this country and around the world. And when we look at, the heroic uprising of the Palestinian people that has been happening, and this brutal genocidal attack by the U.S.-backed State of Israel, we're talking about, a struggle against colonialism and the colonizers, committing genocide against the colonized. And the question of genocide is tied to colonialism.
That's right.
That there is inside this country still owned, this land belongs to the indigenous people. It still is. That's still true. And the people are forced, many of them, into what they call reservations, which is, which we should just be appalled that even that there's that word or that concept of some kind of land area that they are pushed into when this whole place is theirs. White people came from Europe as the colonizers, as the settlers, as the ones to steal the land and to oppress and even commit genocide against the people whose land this is, just as that has happened by Europeans going to Africa, going to Asia, going to the Middle East, and going around the world. This is why Europe, this is why the US, this is why white people have resources, have power, even have democratic rights, because it comes at the expense of the oppressed and colonized people, African people and oppressed people, indigenous people. This is the reality, but everything in this country is to hide that, to obscure that. And what we do, what our job is as the Solidarity Movement under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, is to take that, to talk to white people about this fact and what it is that we have to do. And this is why, that the true, quote, progressive movement is the movement for liberation of African people, and under that, everything comes. It's like we can't fight for, we don't want to fight for women's rights, LGBTQ, or white issues that come at the expense of African people. Yeah. But when colonialism is destroyed, and African people and oppressed people have their land and power, all rights will come for all people. That is the way to do it, not to get something for ourselves, while this country still has the largest prison population on the planet, while, 1 out of every 6 young African men is still going to go to prison, where the police gun down African people every single day, where the wealth gap, in some places like Boston, for example, the wealth gap is for $8 in assets that African people have, white people have $250,000. Where does that come from? Because we worked hard? You and I know that's complete bullshit. This came from stolen land and stolen resources and stolen, natural life and natural resources that belong to somebody else, and that genocide is perpetrated against those people who are trying to uphold their ability to continue their land, their culture, and their relationship with the world. So what the African People's Socialist Party represents is a beautiful, beautiful movement of African people in unity, again, in unity with all oppressed peoples, in unity with the indigenous people, that yes, this is their land, in unity with oppressed people fighting anywhere on this planet, in unity with the Palestinians. And it's saying that they will determine their own future. And we can join that. And we can return resources to that. We can be part of that under their leadership and be part of truly building a new world. Not recreate the situation that exists now, in which white power has maybe a more popular base, or has a different name, which is carried out by the white left, or some kind of thing like that at the expense of African and oppressed people. So this is how we can join the planet. We can be under the leadership of the African Revolution, which is about the whole world and bringing it together. And it's beautiful. And it's beautiful because anybody who knows Chairman Omali Yeshitela knows the first thing he always says is this land is indigenous people's land. He has always put that forward. And he's always said that African people's homeland is Africa. And they want Africa, which is right now continues to be colonized and ripped off, and every resource stolen, and every computer and cell phone that we have all goes back, to the suffering of African people who sometimes live on $1 a day in the richest continent on the planet because of colonialism, and that system must go. So, yeah, I just want to say that. I want, to really, really thank you all for coming out. We can have discussion and talk more. I'd like to see if, Sister Lamina, if you wanted to say a few words today. And, I just wanted to, really, first of all, I just want to say, hands off Uhuru.
Hands off Africa.
And we say unity through
reparations.
So, I hope we can talk more. And, I just wanted to call up Sister Lamina here, who is from San Jose and has many, many years worked for the liberation of the Mexican community here and, throughout this hemisphere. So, Professor, would you like to say a few words today? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Forgive me for my voice, but somehow I got some kind of virus.
I had that.
I really appreciate coming here and listening to you all. And I have a high regard for the Uhuru Movement because they were involved in the liberation of my son, and gave us guidance as to what we had to do. And so that, that's something that we'll never forget. That is solidarity. That's what we call solidarity. That struggle, the struggle of all our people against colonialism. Because that's what we said when we were involved in my son's campaign. We said, free Jose Luis, convict the police. Because it is the state that is responsible. Excuse me. I won't take too much of your time, but I really appreciate it. I want to say that the struggle that is a very important struggle here in the borders of the colonial United States is a very important struggle because it's true. The state will take, a right for us to express ourselves in many, many ways. So we have to use all of our tools to expose them, just like They're being exposed all over the world. The world is knowing that this is the most cruelest government and state that the humanity has seen. And we as Mexican people have experienced that. We have experienced the lynchings when they came and stole this land and decided that they were the owners of this land, taking our properties away, lynching us, hanging us, and killing us like we were nothing. That's what they did to us all over the Southwest. But you know what? We're here, and we're occupying this land, where all of the land that was taken from us. The Mexican people are indigenous people. The thing about it is that when the invaders came, one of the things that they did was rape our women, take our traditions away from us, impose their language, impose their history. And it took 500 years for us to change that thinking. So now we don't even know who we are. We honor this religion that tortured us if we did not speak Spanish. They called it the Inquisition. And that Inquisition still exists. So we had to go through that for 500 years. And that's the reason why many of us look European, because that's what they did to us. They raped the hell out of our women, okay? Right. But we know who we are, and we will fight tooth and nail. One of the things that we're doing right now is taking down all those statues that they say are their heroes. They're not our heroes. They're thieves. They're people that lynched our people, and we have to take them down. That's why we took down the Christopher Columbus that was in the city hall. The rapist that was responsible for exterminating the people in the Caribbean. Yes. We took down the statue of the felon statue because that statue represented also the genocide of the indigenous people, the genocide of the Mexican people. And we have to do it even though it took us 30 years. But that's okay, 30 years is nothing after what they did to us for 500 years. Now, we are coming down and saying that we have to erect our freedom fighters. Freedom fighters that fought tooth and nail, that they call criminals. They call them bandidos. And they came out with all kinds of books talking about the Urcio Vasquez as a criminal. But he had to do what he had to do to fight back, because there were guerrillas, organized groups that fought these racists. And you know, that word stuck to my mind, but it is not racist. They were colonial rapists that lynched us. And people like him fought throughout California. We have to erect those people, those men and women, and change those names, because they're all over. They're in the schools. They're in the streets. They're everywhere. And we have to do what we have to do. The Uhuru Movement has guided us, you know, so that we can fight for our self-determination. And also has guided us to set up the Centro Atlántico Vostok.
Yes.
That we are an independent organization, and that we will continue to be independent and do what we have to do. Yes, we do talk about culture because we have to learn our history, our language. Our people have always resisted in different ways, okay? Many of our people do not even speak Spanish. They speak their original language. There are 150 languages just in Mexico. So it is part of the resistance, and we will continue resisting as we have done in the past. Tierra y libertad, we say. Tierra y libertad.
Venceremos.
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 Patria o muerte.
Venceremos.
Venceremos. Thank you very much. This is in support of Tiburcio Vasquez. Thank you.
Uhuru, let's give another. And Rep Bakri from the African People's Socialist Party. Really an honor. Before I open it up, that there are some things that you can do that we want to ask you to do. First of all, we want you to go to Hands Off Uhuru. Okay, Wendy knows something. Go to handsoffuhuru.org. You can find out, you can see everything, all the media coverage on this case, all the principles of unity, all the organizations that belong to it, and the San Jose Peace and Justice Center can become a member for $25, can become a member. And there are many, many other wonderful, powerful organizations, including UNAC, that somebody was talking about today. And so that's something that you can do. You can go to handsoffoover.org, find out everything about this case, and you can sign up. You can become a member as an individual or an organization, and you can literally join scores of other organizations and just, you know, scores and scores of other individuals who are part of this important movement. Also, Wendy has information about Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Again, I know you put it out earlier, but let's just say it again. There is going to be an event on Saturday at, Wendy, you have to say
it's at the Tamarack, Oakland, which is 15th and Harrison.
Yeah, it's at an event center in Oakland on Tamarack, and we want to invite, you know, everybody to come to that. We also have the Uhuru Solidarity Movement National Convention, which is going to be in March. Is it 6th?
9th and 10th.
9th and 10th, March 9th and 10th in St. Louis. Now,
it'll also be live streamed.
It will be live streamed, but I really want to invite people to come to St. Louis because you can see all the programs of the Uhuru Movement that they've built, the basketball court, the women's center, where that's going to be, you know, the housing, for the beautiful community garden, the outdoor event space, the Uhuru House, which was a condemned building. I mean, there's just so much transformation. There's no place like this in the U.S., and when people come, they're totally bowled over. So that's, I hope you can come one of these days as well, and get a tour. You know, Deputy Chair's office gives tours to people, and then, you know, they can sign up for that and make it happen. So I just want to invite people to do that. And definitely participate and donate.
Donate. We're gonna
and by the way, I do want to say that we raised Hands Off Uhuru through tremendous support from so many masses of people. Raised almost 300,000. I think it's like 277,000 for the legal retainer fees so far. But to go to court, to go to trial, which it looks like they're making us do. The lawyers estimate will cost about $100,000 to have expert witnesses, to get the discovery materials and blah 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 that you need. So we're still raising resources. You know, we still have about $100,000 to raise. So just want to say that you're welcome to make a donation. If you know any other people or organizations that have resources that want to contribute to it, to this struggle, because we are going to win. Chairman Omali Yeshitela, we are winning. He is leading it. This is very powerful. We're going to push back the state. We're going to take on this fight. And this is a victory, and it will continue to be a victory for the oppressed and colonized peoples on this planet Earth. So just want to thank you. Wendy, did you want to come back up and we can open it up?
All right. Let's do another one. Let's say hands. When I say hands off the Uhuru 3, you say drop the charges now. Hands off the Uhuru 3.
Drop the charges now.
Hands off the Uhuru 3.
Drop the charges now.
All right. Thank you, guys. So let's open it up. Donna, did you have a comment, or you want?
Yeah, I have a few comments.
Okay. Question.
So, for one thing, we haven't ever really had freedom of speech in this country. Leonard Peltier is incarcerated for over 48 years because of his standing up for justice for indigenous people. Mumi Abu Jamal is also in prison because of his standing up and speaking truth to power. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of political prisoners in this country. Some of them have been incarcerated for decades. So there is no freedom of speech. It's just a hypocrisy of democracy that doesn't exist in this country. I think it was in 2013, 2011, my memory of dates sucks. The FBI went after the Freedom Road Socialist Organization in Minnesota and in Chicago. On the same day, they went and raided 23 people's houses, very similar to what they did to the Uhuru Movement, going in full bore with high-tech weaponry, dressed up in attack gear, busting down doors, stealing all their computers, their cell phones, stole books, pictures, everything they could take. They took, damaging houses, guns on them in the house where they couldn't even look and see what was going on, because all the charges were bogus, and all of them totally, absolutely refused to go before the grand jury. Eventually the charges were dropped against them, but very, 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 very sadly, they then went after Rasmia Odeh, who's a Palestinian American. For her trial, they allowed Israelis to come in and testify behind a screen, so she couldn't even see who her attackers were, told absolute lies about her, and she ended up getting deported from the United States and sent to Jordan. She had committed no crime whatsoever.
Right.
So my suggestion would be also to contact the Freedom Road Socialist Organization and also the Arab American, I can't remember the name of the organization. Highly suggest for you to contact them to find out what some of their tactics
I
were.
would just say, thank you for raising that, but the Freedom Road is a member of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. Very important, and we know.
But there were, Hassan Abdullah was one of the people who got indicted.
Yes.
I would highly suggest, to find out some of their strategies, so then you're standing on their shoulders and not kind of like that. I mean, it is different because they were charged, they were forced to go before the grand jury. Every single one of them refused. So your situation is different, but still a very similar fucking tactic.
Yeah, they were actually played a role in the webinar that we just had the other day, by the way. But they have been part of this from the beginning, and I really appreciate all of the input that they've given and just their stance, because they were very courageous. And
so,
want to put them forward.
Masao Suzuki, who lives here on San Jose, the FBI came to his house, tried to talk to him, went to his place of work, talked to his employer, talked to his neighbors. He, of course, refused to talk to them, but it was a very threatening situation, but at least they didn't raid his house and destroy everything.
Yeah.
But that's a tactic. This is something that they've done over and over again. So,
yeah, and I just want to say about the Freedom Road, group, because they had something like over 20 members who were going to be forced to testify at a grand jury, which they all refused to do, which is a minimum a minimum 18 months in prison for that. They were prepared. People had kids and everything, and they were like, we are not doing this. And it was very courageous, and I really salute them for that. And forced, basically, the state had to drop it. They couldn't even call or do what they were planning to do. So it was really powerful.
But the state won against Rasmia Ode.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
So,
There were two. I thought there were two people who were
That's
indicted.
right.
Yeah, there were two people who were indicted. Yes. Yes.
There's a couple things I wanted to speak about. One of those things being that recently Glenn Greenwald interviewed the lawyer for the Uhuru Movement, so everyone here should look it up.
And Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
The lawyer mentioned in the video that they tried to get the case dismissed, and that recently, like I think it was a couple days ago, that the judge basically said, like, you can't dismiss it. And the reasoning was, he said, even though we can't prove that you took money from Russia, that technically, that your speech alone, because we think it benefits Russia, then that counts.
Yeah.
And like that's what they said. It says,
Yeah.
like, because the whole thing originally was like, oh, you're receiving money, but they can't even prove that. So now they're shifting the goalpost. And in most cases, it would get thrown out. But everyone here knows that federal prosecution always wins. Like they always win.
They're not going to win this time. I'll tell you
But
that.
what I was gonna say is that I was at some event where someone from the African People's Socialist Party spoke. It might have actually been at like the Rage Against the War Machine, because I know you guys have people there, and I was there in DC.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think. Oh no. Yesterday, our Nevel spoke there. Yeah.
yeah. So one thing they mentioned in that speech was that the party has the right to make relations with whoever they want, right? And this is what political parties do around the world, right? It's very common for parties of any kind to talk to parties of any kind in other countries, right? But we have a law in the United States which basically says if you are a socialist or communist group and you're affiliated with any sort of international formation, that alone is prosecutable. And it's something that's been there since the 50s. And like, they use that to like, they basically use that as a basis for prosecution for any sort of group that engages in international solidarity. So, but I think
we have to fight.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. You know, I haven't heard about that, but I'm not surprised. But the thing is that the state can be pushed back, and when you fight back, you win. You win at the very minimum among the people, you know, and turn the tide on them, and that's what we have to do. We have to say they're not going to win.
The Tampa 3-1.
That's right. Tampa 3-1. They're trying to do things to stop Cop City. They're fighting. You know, there's just more and more cases like this, and people have to fight. We have to resist.
just do not concede in the way. Do not concede to the state.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, and one of the things that I've learned from the Uhuru Movement is that this law is just the opinion of the ruling class, right? They create these laws, and the people, the people challenging them, and shining a light on this case is what we have to do.
But we're even getting to the point where the laws themselves no longer matter, right?
They never did.
Well, it depends
It never
getting
did. But the
charged
thing
with
is that what we are starting to see for white people is what has always been the case for African and indigenous and colonized people. Because the law was never made any difference whatsoever. They used anything they wanted to do to imprison every third African man, and to shoot down African people and indigenous people. So it's just coming out, so the white people
Muslim and Arab people too.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to say, they wanted to give my son the death penalty.
Yes, I remember that.
But they freaked out because we were there in the courts on their back.
Right.
We were tearing their courts apart.
And Hess have fought for years and won, and Jose Luis is out.
He's out.
Yes, very, very powerful.
Did you have something?
Yeah.
I'm Druzy. I'm with Freedom of Socialist Organization.
Oh, okay.
Donna already stole all my talking points. Thank you for talking about it all. But I did want to thank you guys for your solidarity work with the Tampa 5 throughout their whole case this last year. It means a lot, and that's a perfect example of, you know, when we fight, we win, and also the importance of sticking together when people's movements are under attack. And yeah, really just want to extend that to you guys, and hopefully yours will be the next good news victory that we hear.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to ask you, what was the basis of them denying you the hearing?
The
What was the
motion?
what?
The
The
motion?
basis?
Yeah.
Was there a basis? I mean, I guess there was, but they just are like, no. I don't know,
They
they
just
did
said-
write up something
Well,
and,
of course they make up something. They
Yeah,
make up
they-
shit.
Yeah, I know that, but
I would have to.
Wasn't it something about the speech rose to the level
Oh,
of,
yes.
the speech rises
To level of action.
of
They
action,
said
so the
that.
speech that the Uhuru Movement engaged in is not protected speech
Speech
because
is
it
action.
rises to the level of action when you are working, when you are working on
have
behalf
tours, when you have
of a
conferences, when you
forum.
have events. To speak. Yes, that's right.
So,
Just a little bit more information about Leonard Peltier.
thank you.
So Leonard has been in prison now for over 48 years for a crime he didn't commit. The FBI know he is innocent because they fabricated all the fucking evidence against him in his original trial. Plus they forced people to testify against him, threatening them that if they didn't go on the stand saying what they wanted them to say, they would also go to prison. They forced this indigenous woman to write affidavits against Leonard Peltier, lying, saying that she was his girlfriend. They threatened her that they would take her daughter, put her up for adoption, kill her, put her through a meat grinder, and nobody would ever know what happened to her. So, of course, she wrote the documents. The Canadian government should have known that they were all falsified because each fucking document was different, yet they still illegally extradited him as soon as he stepped foot in the United States. They changed the venue of his trial from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where his co-defendants were acquitted on the grounds of self-defense by an all-white male jury, and changed the venue of his trial to Fargo, North Dakota, which was known where the white people living there hate indigenous people, brought a judge out of retirement who was known for his animosity and hatred of indigenous people, who refused to allow any evidence into the courtroom for the jury to hear that proved that Leonard was an innocent man in any way, shape, or form. Even though he had the best civil rights defenders, attorneys in the United States at the time, they were totally powerless in the courtroom. So Leonard Peltier was illegally and wrongfully charged and indicted and convicted and sentenced to 2 consecutive life-term sentences. In any case, they sent him, he's been to many prisons, federal prisons throughout this whole fucking country. All of them maximum security prisons, even though he's always been so-called a role model prisoner. He's now in Pullman, Florida, thousands of miles away from any of his family. In the last year, the whole fucking prison has been almost on constant lockdown, so that the prison guards don't have to do shit. They can just play their video games or who knows what the fuck they do when they're on break. He's losing his eyesight. So recently what we found out is that he is losing his eyesight. So please, there's a new website for him. Please do not go to the International Leonard Peltier Defense Committee website. That is no longer his official website. Leonard Peltier's official website is Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee. That's the group, that's the committee that's now representing him. The official website is freeleonardpeltiernow.org. Please go to that website. There's information there about who to contact regarding ending the lockdowns. Right? So I know that the Uhuru Movement is saying not one more year. But right now, the important thing is to end the lockdowns.
Yes.
Don't just mention Leonard's name. Say end the lockdowns on Coleman. Because you know what these fucking prisons do. If a prisoner speaks out against what's going on, he pays that retribution.
Yes,
so we don't want the prison to punish Leonard.
Yep.
We want, plus Leonard would want to end the lockdowns for everybody anyway, right?
Yes.
But it's also a very serious thing. He's losing his eyesight.
Yes.
Which reminds me that Mumi Abu Jamal is having a very serious medical situation right now. He's lost his hair, his itching psoriasis is back. He's constantly scratching, he can't even sleep. He's constantly scratching himself because he's so itchy. He's losing weight. He had a heart operation, I forget how many years ago. They're not giving him the diet he needs or the exercise he needs. So they're trying to kill him. They're trying to kill Leonard. They're trying to kill lots of these prisoners. Rashid Johnson also is in a very serious situation. They put him in fucking solitary again. So it's just, it is mind-boggling what this criminal system we live under does, of how badly they treat us and how badly they treat people who are in prisons. I'm an in-home support service provider, and the people I work for suffer on a daily basis, and they have to struggle just to get not even the bare minimum of what can help them, right? So a friend of mine who's no longer alive, Kilu Nyasha, called it a medical assault system. There's no medical care in this fucking country.
That's right.
None. Even for rich people, they do not have medical care. It's all about fucking profit. It's a medical assault system. Sorry for talking so long.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna. And I'm really apologetic. I thought I had packed these flyers, and so if you have signed the petition for hands off, we'll make sure the call-in information, because currently there's a call-in to 4 senators, ongoing call-in around Leonard Peltier's medical lack of medical treatment.
Again, if you go to the website,
freeleonardpeltiernow.org,
the information is there.
That's the site endorsed by, called for, led by Leonard Peltier himself.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
I also want to remind people here that what you guys call the white left, or what some people may call the synthetic left, or whatever, is just as guilty and just as responsible for what is going on.
That's fine.
As the federal government, or at the very least, they're objectively helping the federal government. You have so many leftist groups online or in real life that have either ignored the Uhuru case at best, or at worst have actively slandered it, while the FBI is attacking it as like a cult, or as like a grifter organization, or as Russian imperialists or whatever. And there are very few, like as far as like the grand total of the left in America is concerned, there are very few organizations that I can think of that are even raising the issue at all right now. Not that there aren't any. Of course there are some in this room right now, but my point is, the white left is just as responsible for this as like the far right in this country, and as far as like, and it's just as responsible as like the right wing in this country for the situation we're in.
Well, I really appreciate you raising that, and I hope you'll come to our event, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement event in Oakland on Saturday, where we will be talking, more, getting into these questions more. But I really agree with you in that, that what is progressive in true reality comes from the leadership of colonized people fighting against colonialism, because if we don't do that, we're getting rights for white people as the colonizers, sitting on the pedestal of the oppression of the colonized people.
Anything short of consistent anti-imperialism is not good enough.
That's right. Right. Uhuru, thank you for your input.
So,
any other discussion or
any other discussion or questions or announcements? All right. So I know we raised some funds here for Hands Off Uhuru. I don't have a count yet, but we'll find out. But thank you so much for everybody who gave, who signed the petition, who came out, We hope to see you again. We really want to, you to join Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Hands Off Uhuru, come to St. Louis, and just, follow this case and spread the word. We would love to come back here to the San Jose Peace and Justice Center and, follow up. And let's end by saying, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. Unity through reparations. And Tierra y Libertad. Indigenous. And Uhuru.
Thank you. This is great.
It's always